Okay, third and final video for now. I'll do another one if there are lots of questions and if I can. This one I just want to look a little bit at how contagious the COVID-19 virus is and how we look at what makes something contagious. So the two main factors really are how the virus is transmitted from one person to another, and also what they call the infectious load, so how much of the virus you need to be exposed to in order to be ill. There's a bit of confusion about whether COVID-19 is airborne or not. The reason I said in my first video about it is not being as bad as it could be. One of those reasons is that it isn't technically an airborne virus in that it doesn't survive well in the air. However, the reason we have this 2-metre social distancing is because the way it is transmitted is in our saliva and in our sneezing and our coughing. So obviously if we sneeze or cough on each other and you have the virus and you sneeze on me and I get exposed to what comes out when you sneeze, I am therefore at risk of infection. I've been exposed to the virus. And likewise when I talk, if I'm only a metre away from you, there are microscopic saliva droplets coming from my mouth that you are standing in a spray of. It sounds disgusting, but it's normal. It's actually quite amazing, if you ask me, that our immune systems work so well that we don't get more illnesses because we're sharing germs in that way all the time. But you will be exposed. And because this is a new virus and we won't have any immunity, that does put you at risk of getting infected if I have it and I'm talking to you. So that is what the reason for the 2-metre social distancing is. And that is why some people are wearing face masks, because you can reduce that if you're wearing a face mask. But it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, certainly not to you infecting it. It might stop you infecting other people. But if they are talking to you and you get it on your face or on your hat or whatever, you're still exposed. So that's why they're saying reserve them for the people that need it, the healthcare workers and that sort of thing. The other way it is transmitted is through hands and contact, so skin to skin. So that is why the washing of the hands is the main advice. And also they think now as we do more research that it can survive on hard surfaces for quite a few hours. So one of the reasons like the National Trust is open and the advice is that you can go for outdoor exercises because it doesn't survive well in the air, so that's reasonably safe. But what I would say is if you are going out and doing that, you are increasing your risk of exposure because of the number of shared surfaces that you may touch. So just be careful if you're going out, maybe wear gloves, even just winter gloves that you can take off when you get home, and if necessary wash if you want to. But also just be careful, use hand sanitizer or a spray and try to open door handles with your elbow or avoid going through doors and just stay to the open spaces where you're not touching hard surfaces. That will reduce your risk. And obviously if the government advice changes and we can't go out to parks, I'm not telling you to break that advice, you need to follow that advice. But that is why they're doing the social distancing, because it can make a dramatic difference because it's transmitted through saliva droplets and skin-to-skin contact or hard surfaces. I think that's... Oh yeah, the infection load. So they don't know what the infection load is at the moment because it's new. It may be that many of us are exposed and get immunity but aren't ill, and that would be great news. But we can't risk that at the moment because we don't know what that is. So they're being ultra cautious. And I was just going to say one other thing, because a lot of people have asked me things like about vaccination. Is this going to come back? Is this going to stick to us? Well, the common cold belongs to the coronaviruses, so we haven't been able to develop a vaccine to one of them yet. They are quite tricky, so it probably isn't going to come quickly. But because of this, a huge number of resources are going into research, so there's hope and potential and promise for that. It may be that it would have to be an annual or biannual vaccine because of the ability of the virus to change and mutate. So it might be that it can't be a lifelong vaccine. But on that point of mutation, because that can sound quite scary, viruses do mutate, but what they tend to do is mutate to become less infective. So this is a new human virus. It came from animals. So we are a new host. Over time, mutations tend to mean that they kind of start to live more in harmony with their host. So what that will mean is that it becomes less dangerous to us. So the likelihood of a mutation doesn't mean it's going to get worse necessarily. It might actually be a good thing. However, the other way it can mutate is to get around a vaccine. So what you can find is you provide a vaccine and then it needs to mutate so that it can still be infectious, and then you need to redesign your vaccine. And that's what happens with the flu viruses. That's why we have flu vaccines every year, and sometimes they're not as effective as others because we're trying to predict what it's going to be like on each year, and it can mutate to adapt so that the virus isn't effective. And that may happen with coronavirus, so you may need a regular vaccine. But because it should adapt to become less virulent, it does mean that any future spikes will unlikely to need such drastic action from us as a society, and it should maintain rates of illness that will be more manageable for the NHS. That is my hope anyway. I hope I managed to answer some people's questions. I hope I've managed to put some things in context and maybe calm some fears. As I say, if you have other questions, if I can't answer them via a video link because I'm too busy, I will try to answer them in comments if I know the answer or point you in the right direction. My advice would be stay safe. If you do have... that was the other thing I was just going to say, is it seems to be worse for people with reduced lung health or immune systems, either because of underlying illnesses or just because their lungs and immune systems are more aged. So that is why it's with more elderly people. It's this not being able to cope with this pneumonia because their lungs are already aged or working hard or damaged, or their immune systems can't fight it. So it is important that we are all, no matter how old we are, careful about this, because there will be some people for whom it affects no matter what their age. And also by being careful, we can protect those people. So stay safe, try to stay calm. Let's use this time positively to come together and do all the good things for each other. I hope you found my videos not necessarily enjoyable, but maybe informative. Thank you.